Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Hi, Cat Eats Chips. Don't know if you're... Yeah, there's NPCs in the game. We were working on them earlier today, and their navigation was a bit screwy, right? So we had this guy here who was going to a job, but he was basically flipping about like crazy. So he would try to head to his job and he was like flicking back and forward in the direction, right? Now, what I did was I had the sneaking suspicion that the work location was changing in some way, or the state of him was changing in some way, right? And after checking, I confirmed that this wasn't the case, right? So that ruled out the initial thoughts on the matter. Now, here is where it gets a bit interesting, because what was working was, earlier on today, if I said move directly, it was working. Now, I believe move directly does not use the nav mesh. Or at least, I'm not 100% sure about that, but that was my inkling on it. So, I thought to myself, well, we had a problem with this in 4.27, where it was set to static and it wasn't working. So what I did was I went into the project settings to check what it had done when I brought it over to 5.1. Okay, now if I type in dynamic, you will notice that, where is it? Oh yeah, it should be in a drop down actually. Where is it? Is it in navigation system? Nope. Oh, this is weird. Right, let's have a look in here. It's in a drop down. Right, runtime generation. So it was set to dynamic. So I thought, well, I think I'll change it to static. And lo and behold, our NPC will now walk to his job and start doing it without a care in the world. So once again, our upgrade to 5.1 caused us a little bit of an issue, but we eventually figured it out. These are the job location, right? If we do that, we can see him going now to his job, right? So he's going to wander over to his job, and then he's going to chop wood. Okay. And we can walk up to him and we can talk to him. Now, the system is set up so he will say something that is relevant to what he's doing, right? It's just that I've not filled in the data tables with that information, right? But yeah, so he's going to say something like, and it is random as well. So if I talk to him, okay, he will like give us an answer that's relevant to what he's doing. Okay, so these guys will start a job at X hours. You can set that all up and go to bed and stuff like that, and they can have different jobs. Okay, so he's going to just basically do his own thing here. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, we have an event tick going on here. This is it here, that's the workplace, so that was the blue numbers you saw come up, so we can remove that. Okay, now as I said, I don't know why or even if I reset this back to dynamic, if it's going to screw it up again. Right, but I think we'll try it, because I think this might have reset things, right? So it's runtime generation we want. Somewhere, right? See, this one you can do static modifiers only, that's if we're using the navigation modifiers and applying them, or dynamic, right? In 4.27, for some reason, these NPCs weren't working unless it was set to dynamic, but in 5.1 it seems to be the other way around. Right, but having said that, setting it to static and back again, it might all work fine, or we might still have a problem. Now the strange thing is that our monsters were working fine. Right, now this might be something to do with the models or something. Yeah, you can see I'm doing it now, right? See how he's doing this weird crap. Right, and it's coming down here now, which it shouldn't be. Right, but that's because this part is basically failing, because you can't move to it because it's the dynamic mesh. Right, now there's obviously an answer to this. Now, making it a dynamic mesh isn't actually going to make any difference to us, I don't think, because stuff ain't going to move. Right, and we can set it up so that it doesn't have an effect anyway. If stuff does move, we'll just make it not affect the landscape, or not affect navigation, right? But anyway, so at least we know what the issue is. And as I said before, originally we had this set to static for 4.27 until we brought in these NPCs. Okay? So, not too concerned about it right now. So anyway, you'll see that now we've put it back to static. Our dude will now just walk to a job, do the thing. You'll notice that it's not going in here anymore. Our guy has wandered away, he's up the hill, off he goes. Okay. And that's all well and good. So, we solved that issue. Okay, though the one thing I need to check is that our monster still wanders about, which it looks like he was, so I'm not particularly concerned about that. I think I saw in the background that he was wandering about quite happily. Right. So you can see him, he's wandering about. He's wandering about without a care in the world. Okay. So there we go. Everything else is working okay. We're getting a nice blue colour. On our interact. That's all well and good. Right. So that is all well and good. Now there's one more thing I want to do here. It's not in there. It's not here either, by the looks of it. It's not there either. So I'm guessing it's either... it doesn't appear to be in there either. It's not going to be in the animation blueprint. Alright. It's actually in the work station, I believe. Right, so if we look in the workstation, alright, it's in here. And is it in the base one? It's this one here, I think. Nope, it's in the actual chopping wood one itself. Apparently it's not. Right, hang on a second. If we click on it, right, this is the default. So it is in there. So I'm guessing it must be in this one. It's not in here either. Hang on a second. So this isn't it. So it must be this guy. It must be in the individual NPC. Yeah, it is. It's this one here. This one here. Right, but it must be when we set this up. Yeah, it's this one here, right? So this, for it to work, we need it to be that. Right, if this is if we set it up differently, right? This isn't necessarily the way we're going to finish it, but I had to do some flapping about it last night to get it to work, because it's got to work in two ways. It's got to work either spawning, like placing workers at work into the map via the editor, or it's going to have to work from the event manager, right? So for example, the idea is when a ship comes in, right, it spawns all the NPCs, and the NPCs are then assigned to their workstations, right? The workstations will already be set up, but basically, yeah. So this was just to get it to work off back from the editor, like here, okay? So I'm just going to test that again. So you can see here that he's working. He's going to go to his place of work, and then he's going to do his thing. Right, now, the reasons you might not have thought we were going to have anything like that is, obviously we're going to have something like that, right? Because we've got these docks down here, so there's going to be people working and walking about there. Then we've got our towns at various places, right? And there's going to be people working in the towns, basically, right? So there'll be all that stuff. Now, what's that? That's the wall front. Right, I'm going to have another go at something, right? What I'm going to do, I'm just wondering if we have wall spline, right? And the intention here was basically if we wait a minute, if I add a spline point there, right, and then I drag this one out, that's weird. So I'm guessing that that doesn't work the same as our other thing. Let's try this. Now the interesting thing is that that doesn't work the same. Right, we're going to try something here. Right, we've got this walkway that does work, right? So the question is, if we change this that's really weird. Maybe it's not. Right, so what I'm thinking here is, we've got the plank spline, right? If we duplicate it and we'll call it wall log spline, right? So, but in here, right, has this got a component to it? So we're adding a spline mesh component. Forward axis, doobie-doo. So where is the mesh. Where is the mesh for this? So I'm guessing where's the mesh? Am I missing something really obvious here? Where the mesh is? Right. We've got the plank spline. Spline component. Forward action section length. Right, I'm missing something here. Right, that's going to have nothing, that's going to have nothing, that's going to have nothing, because it's all done on construction. Right, but the question is, where? That's all the spline length stuff. Right, that's the spline. It's doing that. It's doing so where's the mesh? So it's not static mesh. Right, I am obviously missing something like really important here. Right? Because I cannot find a mesh. Now, it has to have one. It's not going to be in there, but we're just going to look anyway. It's not in there. It's not in there. Alright. So basically, I don't get it. The only thing I can think of is and it's not there because we already looked there, right? That's got nothing in it. That's got nothing in it. Nothing in it. It's E-spline mesh. Okay, but that still doesn't give us a look at what our spline is, or our spline component mesh is. See, we're adding it here. Right. That's a standard. And that's a standard as well. There's nothing here that we're kind of not. Right, so this is adding the mesh component, right? Now, unless we're setting up the mesh somewhere else, I'm really not understanding this very well at all. Is it going to be one of those frustrating nights again? Hang on a second. It is static mesh, right? This is the component, right? I'm not hallucinating. This should have a static mesh component. I didn't think I was hallucinating. Right? And I really don't know where that is. It should have a static mesh and materials. Right, but it doesn't. Right, hang on. It looks to me that when we get this, right. Definitely something weird going on here with this. Right? And I want to have a look at it actually running. So I'm going to play from here. And it also looks like our dynamic, our static mesh is not including that. Right, so what we're going to have to do is plank spline 2. Alright, and it still does not have the static mesh. Right, I think I'm just missing something rather blooming obvious here. And we've certainly been picking our right, and these are just the points of the different spline points, right? But it's certainly still not shown as a static mesh, which is a bit bonkers. But anyway, we're going to stop that for now. is. Leafy there. Right, that's okay. Right. So I was going to build walls, but obviously the way the walls have been built are different. Right? So I'm just wondering here if we look at the wall spline, if it's actually done different. Right? If this wall spline is done different to the other one. Which it obviously is. Except it's actually not. Right, it's done it in exactly the same way. Right. So wall spline 2 is done exactly the same as plank spline. Right. So that's weird. Anyway, let's get on with it. So the point was that it doesn't seem to add on. Right? So if we drag in this, right? And then we click here. Right, so that didn't seem to do anything. However, it does say right, you'll notice there, right? This is the point I'm making. This doesn't right, we'll undo that. Right, so that adds the whole thing, right? If we want to move this, right, okay. I think what was happening was we were selecting the wrong spline. Not the wrong spline. We were selecting the wrong handle, right? So like, for example, this one here, if we add a spline point there, you see that's right. So it would appear to me that we're not using that, that we might, you see, there's an offset. So this one's working slightly different. So that now makes sense. So that's the difference, right? That this isn't actually adding right, let me just try this, see what this does. That is kind of how it goes. We'll look at that, right? Let's play with this. And our mesh component is not following that spline. Right, so basically this mesh is set up differently to the other one, which is why it's not doing basically what it's supposed to be doing. Right, and I'm sitting here really hot and sweating. And it's going in my eyes and it's making me not be able to see very well. Right. So what I'm going to have to do is take a look at 4.27 and take a look at the splines in that. The spline mesh component, have a look at that and see where we stand, right? But the likes of this, from what I remember, Right, we're going to have to go into our cooking station. Then with our mesh, and or probably our box, we made sure that it can interfere with navigation, right? Because then if we look at navigation, right, it looks like our box isn't actually hitting the ground, except it is here. So the question is, why is it not affecting navigation? Right, because it should. It should definitely be affecting navigation there. Right, now the object mesh should also affect navigation, which it does. So what I think we'll have to do here is build the navigation mesh again. If we can. Apparently we can't. I know a way to do it. You just basically move it back and forward a pixel or a unit. Right, but you can see here that these are definitely affecting navigation. So are these, which is good. Good. Right. That's all good. That's all good. That's a strange thing about those. I wonder. Didn't want to do that. Press the wrong button. We've got this strange effect. Right, do you see that? Right? That is bizarre. I wonder. Actually, I think right, that's good dock. Right. So what about LOD? Right. Okay. SM docs. Right, so that's weird. Right, so that's been set up wrong. Right, so it's the actual LOD itself. Right. I wonder what it comes up with if I do that. Right, well it ain't going to frig up anymore, that's for sure. Right, it's not as bad as me for actually doing that, but you can see now I've actually got everything shown. So we've fixed the problem. That's a good thing. Right, so we can call that a victory. And we know what was causing it, so that's good. Right, we're going to delete that out. So that's cool. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is basically start putting NPCs and stuff round about, I would suggest round about here. Right, and we're obviously going to have to put some like some blockers in the sea. And it looks, I'm going to turn off the, right, that one looks okay, but these sort of flat pancakey ones, these are those are supposed to be when move to there, then we want hidden in game visible off. Right, so that's more like how it should be. Even this one might not be. Not 100% sure about that one, but we'll move it anyway. Yep, I think that's the way it should be. So we have fixed our LOD problem there, which will equip us for later. Hang on a second till I read this. Right, Wadley Zuagi. Bro, I have a question. I'm still new in Unreal and want to make a jerry can fuel tracker. What? Sorry, I don't understand the question, bud. Can you elaborate a bit on that? We'll see if we get an answer. Can you elaborate on what you mean? You mean to track the fuel that came from the jerry can? Or you want the jerry can to be filled with fuel and then to fuel something else? Or I kind of don't understand the question. Oh, right, okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's easy. Well, first of all, you need an overlap. Now, it depends if you're going to make it an interactive, right? So, like, for example, you could say I've got a very similar thing here, right? but it's called food, right? So you can see, for example, on the left here, this is our fuel gauge, or in this case, food gauge, right? And we have a fuel item, which can be a few things, like it can be a plate, like so, where you can eat it or take it and eat it later. So you need an interactive system, or if you're not going to do an interactive system, then what you would need is just an actor that adds fuel, right, or food to our food tracker. Okay, which I have. If you look over there, our food value is going down, right? So basically, if I take that, then I can go to my inventory, right? And that basically shows you what I have. And then if you use it, you will see, once I do that, that this goes, you'll notice that this one is back up to full. So basically, either interactive system, or you need a way to in your like for example, for me here it's the pawn, right? So the pawn has got attributes. I'll show you that. It's in a structure, right? But we have attributes here, and you've got hunger, thirst, energy, maximum energy, weight carried, maximum weight carried, and basically what you would do would just say hunger equals hunger plus the food or the fuel that your tracker gives, or your jerry can gives. So say for example you're the small jerry can, it would just have a, you know, value of 10. So you would say hunger equals, or gasoline equals gasoline plus the value from your actor. Or if it was a bigger one, it might have a value of 25. So you just say, you know, gasoline equals gasoline plus the value, which is 25. There's really a myriad of ways you can do it. It just depends on the way that you've got it set up, right? But in my interactive system, right, I have got this set up so that I've got, not that one, eat, right? You'll notice that we pass in a value, so that value is the value from, let's say, the jerry can, right? And it basically then sets up the main attributes and sets that value, right? This in actual fact is just running the it's just doing the lerp on the, what do you call it, on the widget. So this isn't actually setting the value of our main attribute, but it does it in the interactable item, right? So let's have a look at that. So the easiest one is food, but they all look the same, right? So you'll notice that if we use the item, if it's a food item, we basically say eat, right? We get our item, which is your value, so in this case it would be your jerry can oil or gasoline value. You would pass that in. This runs the eat, which is in our character actions, so that is in our pawn, right, but it isn't this one, right? What it's in is our it should be in it might not be that one. It should be in use item. Maybe not. We've got an interface. Right, got event eat, which is this one here. So it must be an interactable item where I set it, but basically the main attributes get set here, right? If we go to the interactable item, right? I can't remember where that is, but we basically check. Right, it's not that one. It's not that. Right, so for event use, for example, we go to use item in the subclass, so that would be in BP food. So then we do the eat, then we basically destroy the actor, and this gets fired. Right, we'll break in there, so we'll do this, and we'll test it. Jumping between all these systems gets very confusing, especially when you write them all. Right, so if we eat this, right, we fire this, okay? Then if we step into that, right, event eat, and that is a weird one, because I'm not 100% sure that should actually work. If it doesn't, I've lost some kind of code somewhere, because let's go into our pawn again. You've got me interested in this now, right? Where? Right. So we've got variables. It's not in there. We should have a hunger. previous values. Right, so find references. Wait a minute, see here, it's here, calc, hunger values, right, this is where it sets it, right, so it sets the value here, right, so this is where it updates, like the amount of gasoline, and then it goes and does the other thing. That was just a little bit of a sneaky one there, right, where that was actually done, right, but it was actually in there, right, so it actually gets done at this point, and that's probably not a good name for it, calc hunger values. It should probably be like set hunger values, right. So we should probably call it set hunger values. Right, and we use the previous one so that we can lerp to the next one. But yeah, we're getting worried I'd lost that code, but yeah, there we go. So hopefully, well, I don't know if that answers your question. It depends on how simple or how complicated your interaction system is, and if you're at that point yet, or if you're actually just setting values with like simple actors that like interact with your pawn, right? It really just depends how you're doing it, how far along you are, because I don't know how much you know about Unreal Engine, if you know about interfaces, if you know about event dispatchers, blah blah blah, so I can't really answer your question unless I know that, and we're not going to know that tonight. But if you're still there, still listening, I'll be back at 2. If you want to make it simple, just make your jerry can an actor, get a reference to the pawn, set up a custom event which says fill up or fill fuel gauge, and then in your actor, if the character walks over it, basically get your reference, pull a pin off it and call the event, and the event's going to have a value as an input, right? And then just basically say fill fuel and then pass in the value, and then in your reference, in your character or your pawn, just have that event that accepts an input, then have a variable that's called current fuel, and then just do get the current fuel and then set it to current fuel plus the value that you pass in, right? And that would be it, simply. That would be the easiest way to do it, right? But I shall be back tomorrow at 2 PM. If you're still struggling with it, I can show you something